Julian Stockholm, the greatest genius in the Magus universe, stood at the end of his journey. Surrounded by thousands of hostile Magi, he was covered in wounds so severe that blood pooled beneath his feet. His black armor was shattered, one of his arms was gone, and hundreds of corpses littered the battlefield around him. There was no escape left. Every path had been sealed, and powerful Magi surrounded him from all directions. The enemies mocked him relentlessly. They laughed at the once unrivaled genius who had shaken the universe with his talent. Yet despite their taunts, none of them dared to step forward. Fear filled their eyes. Even in such a miserable state, Julian Stockholm remained someone they could not underestimate. Then, Stockholm slowly raised his remaining arm. Instantly, the surrounding Magi became alert. A pristine white lotus appeared in his palm, and the moment they saw it, greed flashed across their faces. This legendary artifact was the very treasure everyone had been fighting over. Looking at the lotus, Stockholm smiled bitterly. He realized that the burden of this artifact had always been too great for him to bear. Perhaps it had never been his destiny to possess it. Even so, he felt no regret. Throughout his life, he had pursued the highest peak of magic with everything he had. Although death awaited him today, he remained satisfied with the path he had chosen. He believed that one day, someone else would inherit his will and continue the dream he could not complete. Then his smile turned cold. Since all of his enemies had gone to such great lengths to corner him, they might as well accompany him into death. The thousands of Magi immediately felt a terrifying sense of danger. Before they could react, an overwhelming pressure descended upon the battlefield. The source of that pressure was the White Lotus. As the artifact bloomed, space across thousands of miles suddenly froze. Stockholm poured every remaining drop of mana into it, causing a massive energy vortex to form around the lotus. Cracks rapidly spread through the surrounding void as reality itself began to collapse under its divine power. Panic erupted among the Magi. They desperately tried to flee, but it was already too late. One after another, their eyes lost all light. Their souls were torn from their bodies and devoured by the White Lotus. No physical wounds appeared on them. Instead, the artifact directly destroyed and consumed their souls. Stockholm himself was also reaching his limit. His consciousness gradually faded as the lotus continued to absorb countless souls. Yet he gritted his teeth and persisted, determined to drag every one of his enemies into the grave with him. Soon, the battlefield became silent. The bodies of powerful Magi, beings capable of ruling entire planets and inspiring awe in trillions across the universe, collapsed one after another. Before the power of the White Lotus, however, they were no different from ants. At last, Stockholm could no longer endure. His own soul was annihilated and absorbed by the artifact. With that, Julian Stockholm, the greatest genius of the Magus universe, perished. After devouring thousands of powerful souls, the White Lotus floated silently above the battlefield. Majestic and untouched, it hovered in the air for a brief moment before drifting toward one of the cracks in the void. Then it disappeared. The legendary artifact continued its journey through the boundless universe, silently waiting for the person destined to inherit its power and carry on the dream left behind by Julian Stockholm. After the legendary White Lotus vanished into the boundless universe, waiting for its next inheritor, far away in another corner of the world, a young boy named Adam Constantine continued chasing his own dream. More than a month had passed since Adam left the Cormier Kingdom. Traveling with a large caravan, he had already crossed 2 kingdoms on the way to Moon City, the capital of the Nightingale Kingdom. Along the journey, the group had encountered several attacks from wild beasts, but the mercenaries escorting the caravan had always driven them away. Fortunately, they had yet to encounter more dangerous threats, such as magical beasts, ogres, or trolls that roamed the untamed wilderness. That night, while the sounds of crickets and owls echoed through the forest, Adam practiced swordsmanship alone in a clearing near the camp. His upper body was bare, drenched in sweat as he repeatedly swung a rough-edged sword. His technique was simple and unrefined, but every strike carried determination. Eventually, exhaustion forced him to stop. Lying on the grass beneath the twin moons, he stared at the night sky while thinking about the journey ahead. According to what he had overheard from the other children, reaching Moon City would still take another 2 months. Moon City was famous throughout the region because it housed Clover Academy, one of the most prestigious magic academies in the area. Every year, children from neighboring kingdoms traveled there hoping to enroll and begin the path of becoming a Magus. Adam was no exception. Ever since he was young, he had dreamed of becoming a Magus. Years ago, he had met a Magus who discovered that he possessed talent for spellcasting. Learning this had completely changed his life. In a world where strength strength determined everything, Magi stood above ordinary people. They were revered by the masses and possessed the power to control nature itself. Adam refused to spend his life as an ordinary person. Since discovering his talent, he had trained diligently every day, determined to one day become a Magus and travel the world. Unlike many of the noble children accompanying the caravan, however, Adam was merely a commoner. Worse, he was an orphan with nobody to rely on except himself. Growing up, he worked countless odd jobs and saved every coin he could just to afford this journey. Even then, he wasn't sure he had enough money. Thinking about the academy's enrollment fee made him sigh. Still, he reassured himself that once he reached Moon City, there would be some time before the entrance examination. He would find a way to earn the money somehow. No matter what happened, he was determined to enter Clover Academy. After gathering his belongings, Adam headed to a nearby pond to wash himself before dinner. The moonlight reflected beautifully across the water, creating a calm and peaceful atmosphere. Even so, he carefully checked his surroundings for danger before stepping into the pond. The cold water quickly soothed his sore muscles. As he bathed, the surface reflected his young appearance. Dark eyes filled with innocence and determination, black hair reaching the base of his neck, and otherwise ordinary features. Just as he was about to leave the water, something caught his attention. Floating in the center of the pond was a pristine white lotus surrounded by 3 green leaves. The flower appeared ordinary at first glance, yet it seemed to radiate a subtle divine aura. As Adam stared at it, he felt strangely refreshed and couldn't look away. Nearly a minute passed before he finally snapped out of his daze. The mysterious lotus immediately sparked a thought. Could it be one of the rare natural ingredients used in magical potions? Excitement surged through him. If that was true, selling it in Moon City could easily provide enough money to pay for the Academy's enrollment fee. Without hesitation, Adam quietly swam toward the flower, careful not to make too much noise. He didn't want anyone else discovering what could be his ticket into Clover Academy. Soon, he reached the center of the pond. The lotus was finally within arm's reach. Grinning with excitement, Adam carefully extended his hand and touched the white petals. The instant his fingers made contact, the lotus vanished. At the same moment, Adam's expression froze. His eyes rolled back, and he immediately lost consciousness. The moment Adam touched the white lotus, everything around him vanished. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing on a vast green plain. Confused and alarmed, he tried to understand what had happened. Just moments ago, he had been bathing in the pond, yet now he had somehow appeared in a completely different place. Before he could make sense of it, the scenery shifted. A man clad in black armor appeared before him. The stranger had long black hair and carried himself with calm confidence. Adam instinctively stepped back and tried to speak to him, but the man showed no reaction at all, as if he couldn't see or hear him. Then thousands of people suddenly appeared around them. Some floated in the sky, while others stood on the ground. Their presence alone made it difficult for Adam to breathe. Almost immediately, he realized what they were. Magi. The armored man remained calm despite being surrounded. His posture never wavered, and fear was nowhere to be seen on his face. Although Adam couldn't understand the strange language spoken by the surrounding Magi, it was obvious they had hostile intentions. What happened next completely shattered everything Adam thought he knew about power. Thousands of Magi attacked at the same time. Countless spells erupted across the battlefield, filling the sky with devastating colors and unimaginable destruction. The earth cracked apart. The heavens seemed to split open, and the battle resembled the end of the world itself. Adam watched in stunned disbelief. Despite facing thousands of powerful opponents, the armored Magus fought back alone and even gained the upper hand. With a simple wave of his hand, he froze space itself. With another, countless enemies were reduced to nothingness. Yet his opponents were equally terrifying. They summoned meteor showers, earthquakes, thunderstorms, and massive tsunamis with their magic. As the battle dragged on, numbers eventually began to overwhelm even the armored Magus. He suffered one injury after another. At one point, a female Magus rushed toward him at incredible speed and severed his arm, though she paid for it with her life. Without realizing it, Adam had begun rooting for the lone warrior. He watched helplessly as the armored Magus continued fighting despite his worsening condition. Then, during his final moments, the man summoned something that made Adam's heart stop. A pristine white lotus. It was the same lotus Adam had discovered in the pond. Before Adam could process what he was seeing, space froze, and the surrounding Magi desperately tried to to escape. The lotus bloomed, creating a terrifying vortex that consumed everything. One by one, the Magi died, while the armored Magus slowly reached the end of his life. As Adam watched, he felt as though the dying Magus briefly looked directly at him. Even at death's door, there was no fear or regret in the man's eyes. The Magus died, standing tall. Adam's eyes became moist as he witnessed the final moments of the warrior, who had faced thousands of enemies alone. Soon afterward, the scene vanished, and Adam found himself floating inside a mysterious white space filled with glowing orbs of different sizes. He struggled to comprehend everything he had just witnessed, especially the connection between the armored Magus and the white lotus. His attention shifted to a nearby orb of light, and he cautiously reached toward it. But before he could touch it, everything changed once again. Adam suddenly found himself back in the pond. The first thing he noticed was that the white lotus had disappeared. Panic immediately gripped him. After witnessing the vision, he understood that the flower was no ordinary magical ingredient. It was an incredible artifact connected to the powerful Magus he had just seen. Frantically, he searched the pond, but the lotus was nowhere to be found. Then he noticed something strange in his reflection. Inside his dark eyes were intricate flower-shaped patterns, glowing with divine white light. A shocking possibility appeared in his mind. The lotus had fused with him. The thought filled him with excitement. Although he had no idea what the artifact truly was or what abilities it possessed, he knew it was something extraordinary that could help him achieve his dream of becoming a Magus. Gradually, the glowing patterns faded until his eyes looked normal again. After calming down, Adam left the pond, changed into fresh clothes, and headed toward the campfire where dinner was being served. Thoughts of the future filled his mind as he imagined what this mysterious inheritance might mean for him. But before he could enjoy the moment, a mocking voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "If it isn't the farm boy." The familiar insult instantly made Adam clench his fists. Looking toward the speaker, he felt annoyance rise within him. This bastard again. The voice belonged to Jeffrey Palmer, the arrogant son of a duke from the Cormier kingdom. Dressed in expensive silk clothes and decorated with fancy ornaments, Jeffrey approached Adam with two followers trailing behind him. The trio had spent the entire journey mocking Adam. As the only commoner among the children traveling to Clover Academy, he was an easy target. In their eyes, someone of his status had no right to dream of becoming a Magus. Adam had always tolerated their insults. He knew that unlike them, he had no noble family backing him. Everything he had achieved came from his own hard work and the chance encounter with the wandering Magus who had discovered his talent and taught him to read and write. But tonight felt different. After witnessing the vision of the black armored Magus standing against thousands of enemies without fear, something had changed inside him. When Jeffrey approached, expecting the usual silent submission, Adam calmly met his gaze and asked what he wanted. The response caught Jeffrey completely off guard. His two lackeys immediately stepped forward, furious that a commoner had dared speak back. Adam ignored them and looked directly at Jeffrey. "If there's nothing, then get lost. Don't bother me from now on." Jeffrey's expression darkened instantly. He couldn't understand where this newfound confidence had come from. Enraged, he ordered his followers to teach Adam a lesson. One of the boys charged forward and threw a punch. Adam reacted immediately. Thanks to his daily training, he sidestepped the attack and countered with a punch of his own. The strike landed squarely on the boy's nose. The lackey collapsed to the ground, screaming in pain, claiming his nose was broken. Before he could continue, Adam kicked him in the face and knocked him unconscious. The second lackey froze. The sight of his companion being defeated so easily completely shattered his courage. Adam sneered and beckoned him forward. Instead of fighting, the terrified boy turned around and ran straight back toward camp. Jeffrey shouted after him, but the boy only ran faster. Now furious, Jeffrey watched as Adam crouched beside the unconscious lackey and picked up his money pouch. When Adam opened it, he was shocked by the amount of gold inside. There was more money in that pouch than he had managed to save during all his years of work back home. Jeffrey immediately accused him of stealing. Adam simply looked at him and demanded that he hand over his own money as well. The noble boy was completely stunned. A commoner was actually trying to extort him. Consumed by anger, Jeffrey rushed forward to fight personally. The result was immediate. Adam knocked him unconscious with a single punch to the jaw. Then he took Jeffrey's money pouch as well. It was made from fine silk and felt even heavier than the first one. Satisfied, Adam decided to consider the money compensation for all the bullying he had endured during the journey. Laughing to himself, he headed back toward the campfire. The financial problems that had worried him for so long suddenly seemed solved. Adam wasn't concerned about retaliation. They were far from the Cormier kingdom, and the mercenaries escorting the caravan had no interest in getting involved in a fight between children. After joining the line for food, he received a simple meal of black bread and meat stew and sat down away from the others. While eating, his thoughts drifted back to the White Lotus, the mysterious space filled with glowing orbs, and the vision of the black-armored Magus. He couldn't stop wondering what the Lotus truly was, or how he could return to that strange realm. After finishing dinner, he lay down on the grass beneath the stars. The image of the lone Magus battling thousands of enemies replayed repeatedly in his mind. Adam stared at the night sky with longing. One day, he wanted to become someone like that. Eventually, sleep overtook him. Meanwhile, inside one of the nearby carriages, a man wearing an olive cloak sat reading a thick book. At some point, he looked out the window and noticed Adam sleeping with two bulging money pouches clutched tightly against his body. The man's gaze then shifted toward the clearing, where Jeffrey and one of his followers still lay unconscious. After briefly examining their injuries, he simply shook his head with amusement and returned to his book. As for Adam, he continued sleeping peacefully, dreaming of the day he would become a splendid Magus. As Adam continued dreaming of becoming a Magus, another month passed during the caravan's journey to Moon City. The monsoon season had arrived, bringing heavy rainfall and difficult roads. Fortunately, the scaled horses pulling the carriages were sturdy enough to handle the rough conditions, allowing the party to continue moving without major delays. During this period, they were attacked by magical beasts several times. However, the more than 30 mercenaries escorting the caravan easily dealt with these threats. Although they couldn't wield mana, they were experienced fighters capable of handling ordinary magical beasts. Everyone knew that the real danger still lay ahead. The closer they got to the Nightingale Kingdom, the more numerous and powerful the magical beasts would become. At that point, the mercenaries alone would not be enough. Fortunately, 3 Rank 1 Magi, assigned by Clover Academy, were also traveling with the caravan. Their duty was to ensure the children's safe arrival in Moon City. So far, they had not needed to intervene, but many of the children eagerly anticipated seeing real Magi in action. Throughout the month, Adam remained focused on his training. Every day he exercised and practiced his combat skills without fail. Jeffrey Palmer had not forgotten his humiliation. Several times, he gathered other children and attempted to trouble Adam, but every confrontation ended the same way. Adam beat them soundly and somehow walked away richer than before. Eventually, the other children learned their lesson and stopped provoking him. Even so, none of them wanted to befriend him. The difference in social status remained a barrier. Adam was still the lone commoner among a group of noble children. Although this isolation hurt him somewhat, it wasn't anything new. He had spent most of his life alone. Instead of dwelling on it, he focused on the things that mattered most to him, growing stronger and becoming a Magus. While the children kept their distance, the mercenaries treated him differently. They knew Adam possessed magical talent and might one day become a spellcaster. Building a good relationship with a future Magus could only benefit them. One evening, Adam sat around a smaller campfire, sharing dinner with several mercenaries. Curious about his future destination, he asked a middle-aged mercenary named Rick about Moon City. Rick proudly declared it the finest city he had ever visited, despite traveling throughout much of the Southern Federation. He explained that the River Orie divided the city into 2 sections, the North Ward and the South Ward. The North Ward housed most of the nobles and the royal palace, while Clover Academy was located in the South Ward. Another mercenary, Lila, reminded Rick not to forget the city's most famous landmark, the Lunar Bridge. According to her, the bridge crossed the River Orie and connected the 2 wards. It was a magical structure rumored to have been built by dwarves. Whenever the twin moons, Selene and Luna, appeared in the sky, the bridge would illuminate brilliantly and reflect their splendor. Adam listened with fascination. The conversation soon shifted toward Magi. One of the mercenaries mentioned rumors of a secret neighborhood within Moon City that only Magi could access. The more Adam heard, the more excited he became. He declared that he couldn't wait to enter Clover Academy and become a Magus. Lila jokingly told him not to forget them when he became successful. Realizing why the mercenaries were so friendly, Adam simply agreed. He knew they meant no harm. The group spent the rest of the evening talking. They even convinced Adam to try ale for the first time. Unlike the noble children, Adam was easygoing and respectful, making him popular among the mercenaries. Not everyone was pleased by this scene. From another campfire, Jeffrey and several other boys watched Adam laughing with the mercenaries. One freckled boy angrily complained that Adam had taken his family heirloom sword during one of their confrontations. conditions. Jeffrey mockingly suggested he go retrieve it himself. The boy immediately fell silent, remembering the painful beating Adam had given him days earlier. Jeffrey scoffed and turned his gaze back toward Adam. As he watched the boy enjoying himself, a cold idea formed in his mind. He knew the magical beast attacks would become more dangerous as they approached the Nightingale Kingdom, and amidst that chaos, Jeffrey decided he would settle the score. After all, Adam had humiliated him and taken his money. Jeffrey silently swore that the commoner would never make it to Moon City. Jeffrey's hatred continued to grow, but the caravan had more immediate problems to worry about as it entered Crest Valley. This vast valley, surrounded by mountains and inhabited by countless magical beasts, was one of the most dangerous parts of the journey. Travelers normally followed routes that had been carefully scouted by Magi beforehand. Anyone foolish enough to travel through the valley alone was practically seeking death. From this point onward, Moon City was only about 3 weeks away. However, everyone also knew that the closer they got to their destination, the more dangerous the beast attacks would become. Looking out from his carriage window, Adam admired the scenery. Over the past 2 months, he had seen more of the world than he ever had during his entire childhood. In the distance, foxes watched the caravan cautiously while their cubs played nearby. Elsewhere, herds of horses with fiery manes ran freely across the landscape. Despite the beautiful sights, Adam understood the dangers hidden beneath the surface. From conversations with Rick and the other mercenaries, he had learned that Crest Valley claimed lives almost every time children were escorted through it. Even with Magi accompanying the caravan, casualties were common. As he thought about this, his hand instinctively tightened around the hilt of his sword. While he was looking outside, a timid voice suddenly called out to him. A girl with twin ponytails nervously asked how much longer it would take to reach Moon City. She admitted that she could barely endure the journey anymore. Adam could understand her feelings. Most of the noble children had never experienced such hardship before. Months of travel, cramped carriages, and constant danger had exhausted them mentally and physically. Repeating what he had heard from the mercenaries, Adam explained that they would reach the borders of the Nightingale Kingdom in about 2 weeks. After that, it would take another week to arrive at Moon City. The answer relieved many of the children who overheard the conversation. After surviving more than 2 months on the road, a few more weeks didn't sound too bad. At least, that's what they believed. Later that evening, the caravan stopped on elevated ground to make camp. While the mercenaries prepared tents and campfires, the blue-eyed man in the olive cloak sat inside one of the carriages reading as usual. Suddenly, he lifted his head and looked into the distance. After a moment, he calmly stated that it was time for them to make their move. The other 2 olive-cloaked Magi inside the carriage looked in the same direction. One of them coldly suggested allowing the mercenaries to handle the situation first. He believed the children needed tempering and that Clover Academy wasn't a place for weak-willed Magi. The blue-eyed Magus simply smiled knowingly and returned to his book. Only a few minutes later, the peaceful evening was shattered. A long, ominous wolf howl echoed through the valley. Then another and another. The mercenaries immediately recognized the danger. A wolf pack, and a large one. While a single magical wolf wasn't especially threatening, an entire pack was a different matter. Wolves fought together with remarkable coordination, making them far more dangerous than most beasts. The mercenary leader instantly began shouting orders. Carriages were moved into defensive positions while everyone scrambled into formation. Then, in the darkness, dozens upon dozens of glowing green eyes appeared. 100 pairs of eyes stared at the camp. The ground trembled as the creatures rapidly approached. The mercenaries quickly identified them as night wolves, a species that became especially powerful after sunset. Their speed increased, and their attacks became even more vicious. Panic spread among the children. Some began crying and calling for their parents. Others drew their weapons and tried to prepare themselves. Rick's expression turned grim as he looked at them. Prepare for battle. Adam immediately unsheathed the sword he had taken from one of the noble boys. Gripping it tightly, he watched the incoming wolf pack with growing anxiety. Nearby, Jeffrey held a loaded crossbow in trembling hands as he stared at the approaching beasts. But then, he turned toward Adam, and despite the danger surrounding them, a cruel light appeared in his eyes. The wolf pack charged straight toward the camp, their jaws open and sharp teeth gleaming in the darkness. When they were only 30 meters away, the mercenary leader gave the order to fire. Dozens of arrows shot through the air and slammed into the front ranks of the wolves. Several beasts collapsed immediately and were trampled by the pack charging behind them. When the wolves drew even closer, another volley was released, killing more of them before they reached the defensive line. Then, the real battle began. The mercenary leader raised his spear and led the charge as the wolves crashed into the barricade of wooden carriages. Mercenaries, stationed between and atop the carriages, swung their weapons relentlessly, turning the battlefield into a bloody slaughter. Wolf howls, screams, curses, and the sounds of battle echoed throughout the camp. At the center of the formation, the children watched in horror. Adam's hands trembled as he stared at the carnage. He had never seen anything so brutal before. The most dangerous thing he had ever faced was a wild boar near his hometown, and even that encounter had nearly killed him. Compared to that, this battle was on an entirely different level. Closing his eyes, Adam forced himself to calm down. When he opened them again, determination had replaced fear. He decided not to recklessly join the mercenaries. Instead, he would remain near the center of the camp and kill any wolf that broke through the blockade. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for that to happen. Only a few minutes into the battle, a young mercenary was overwhelmed and eaten alive. At the same time, a badly wounded wolf slipped through the defensive line and charged directly toward the children. The children froze. Many were too terrified to move. But Adam knew someone had to act. Rather than retreating, he ran straight toward the injured beast. His heart pounded as he closed the distance. Then, as he passed by the wolf, he swung his sword in a powerful horizontal slash. The wolf suddenly stopped moving. A moment later, blood burst from a deep wound running from its neck down toward its waist. The injury wasn't clean enough to split the beast apart, but it was more than enough to finish it. The wolf collapsed to the ground, struggled briefly, and then died from blood loss. Adam stared at the corpse in disbelief. He had actually killed it. Adrenaline surged through his body, making him feel almost invincible. For a brief moment, he even considered joining the mercenaries on the front lines. Fortunately, reason prevailed, and he quickly retreated back toward the center of the camp. Only then did the other children recover from their shock. Many stared at him with disbelief. Some felt admiration, while others felt humiliated that a commoner had displayed more courage than they had. Still, his actions had inspired them. The children's morale rose, and many finally readied their weapons. Jeffrey had witnessed everything. Watching Adam charge toward the wolf and emerge victorious forced him to ask himself whether he could have done the same. Deep down, he already knew the answer. For a moment, he hesitated, but his pride and resentment quickly overwhelmed any uncertainty. In his eyes, Adam's accomplishments only made him more intolerable. Adam had taken his money, beaten him in front of others, and now was earning admiration during the battle. Jeffrey couldn't forgive it. He decided that tonight, Adam would die, and if killing him proved impossible, then he would at least cripple him and destroy any chance he had of becoming a Magus. Meanwhile, the battle grew increasingly desperate. More mercenaries were killed as wolves broke through the defenses. Several children were forced into combat, and 2 of them lost their lives. Despite the worsening situation, the 3 Magi accompanying the caravan still had not intervened. Anxiety spread through both the mercenaries and the children. Adam continued fighting with everything he had. He slashed, stabbed, and hacked at every wolf that came near him. Blood covered his body, some belonging to the wolves and some his own. Completely immersed in the struggle, he focused only on surviving. Then Jeffrey spotted an opportunity. From a relatively safe position, he loaded a bolt into his crossbow and carefully aimed at Adam. To everyone around him, it looked as though he was trying to help. "Adam, let me help you." The moment he shouted those words, he pulled the trigger. The bolt shot through the air, and a wicked grin spread across Jeffrey's face. As Jeffrey's bolt flew through the battlefield, Adam was locked in a desperate struggle against a wolf. After fighting continuously for nearly 10 minutes, he was already exhausted. When he heard Jeffrey call out that he was coming to help, Adam was confused. Of all people, Jeffrey was the last person he expected to assist him. Then the bolt struck. It pierced straight through his left shoulder. Adam's eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, the wolf seized the opportunity and lunged at him. Its jaws clamped down on his left arm, pinning him to the ground as its teeth tore into flesh. A scream of agony escaped Adam's lips. Meanwhile, Jeffrey watched from afar and cursed inwardly. He had been aiming for Adam's head. Seeing that his target was still alive, he briefly considered firing another shot. However, he quickly abandoned the idea. One accidental hit could be excused, but a second shot might attract the attention of the 3 Magi. Satisfied that the wolf would finish the job, Jeffrey turned away and resumed shooting at other wolves. On the ground, Adam struggled desperately. The beast was too strong. No matter how hard he fought, he couldn't break free. Blood poured from his wounds, and his arm slowly began losing agonizing sensation, tears mixed with blood, as despair threatened to consume him. But then memories flashed through his mind, his difficult childhood, the mysterious white lotus, and the black-armored Magus who had stood alone against thousands of enemies. A savage determination ignited within him. That man had fought countless powerful Magi without surrendering. How could Adam die to a single beast before even becoming a Magus? He refused to accept it. Driven by sheer willpower, Adam found strength he didn't know he possessed. He grabbed the bolt lodged in his shoulder and violently ripped it out. The pain was unbearable, but he ignored it. With a roar, he plunged the bolt directly into the wolf's eye. The beast immediately released his arm and tried to retreat. Adam didn't allow it. Wrapping his legs around the wolf's body, he trapped it in place and repeatedly slammed his fist against the protruding bolt. Again and again and again. The bolt sank deeper until it pierced the wolf's brain. Only after the creature stopped moving completely did Adam finally release it. His body felt drained of all strength. He pushed the corpse aside and slowly stood up. His left arm had been mangled by the wolf's teeth and looked horrific. Blood covered him from head to toe, giving him the appearance of a demon risen from a battlefield. Then he looked around and found Jeffrey. The moment Adam remembered the bolt that had struck him, an unprecedented killing intent erupted inside him. For the first time, he realized that some people genuinely wanted him dead. Broken sword in hand, he began walking toward Jeffrey. "I'll kill you." His voice was low and filled with bloodlust. Jeffrey froze. Seeing Adam alive was shocking enough. Seeing him approach, covered in blood with murderous intent, made his legs give out beneath him. Terrified, he fell to the ground and desperately tried to explain that it had all been a mistake. Adam didn't listen. He continued, moving forward. Just as he was about to reach Jeffrey, the blue-eyed Magus in the olive cloak suddenly appeared between them. The man calmly looked at Jeffrey before turning his attention to Adam. He stated that this was neither the time nor the place for their dispute. Adam tried to protest, but the Magus cut him off firmly. Relief flooded Jeffrey's face. He immediately thanked the Magus for saving him. The response he received was anything but comforting. The blue-eyed Magus coldly ordered him to shut up and made it clear that he knew exactly what Jeffrey had done. Jeffrey's face instantly turned pale. At that moment, the other two olive-cloaked Magi appeared beside the blue-eyed man. All three wore the four-leaf clover insignia of Clover Academy. Looking beyond the battlefield, one of them noticed an unusually large night wolf. It appeared to be on the verge of advancing into a rank 2 magical beast. The blue-eyed Magus immediately understood. That explained why such a large wolf pack had gathered and acted with unusual coordination. The woman among them suggested ending the battle quickly. Without another word, the three Magi leaped beyond the carriage barricade and landed directly before the wolf pack. The surrounding wolves instinctively retreated, sensing the overwhelming danger radiating from them. Cracking his knuckles, the blue-eyed Magus looked ahead and prepared to act. At last, the Magi were finally entering the battle. With the three Magi finally stepping onto the battlefield, the tide of the battle immediately began to change. The alpha wolf howled furiously and ordered the remaining wolves to attack them. Although the wolves instinctively feared the Magi, they had no choice but to obey their leader's command. The silver-haired Magus, Kelly, moved first. Crouching down, she pressed both palms against the ground as a glowing magic circle appeared beneath her hands. Using a spell called Spill Water, she generated a large amount of water that rapidly spread across the battlefield. The spell itself caused no direct harm, but it soaked the ground and prepared the battlefield for what would come next. Immediately afterward, the burly Magus, Ivan, stepped forward. Stomping the ground, he cast Shape Earth. The terrain beneath the wolves instantly transformed into deep mud. Many of the charging wolves lost their footing and crashed into one another. However, even this wasn't enough to stop the pack entirely. Then Alex made his move. The blue-eyed Magus formed several hand signs before lightning began crackling across his palm. Using shocking grip, he slammed his electrified fist into the muddy ground. The result was devastating. The water and mud instantly became a sea of lightning. Electricity surged across the battlefield, electrocuting the wolves trapped within it. Their bodies convulsed as their fur burned black. Within moments, nearly 100 wolves were dead. The surviving children stared in shock. For many of them, it was their first time witnessing real Magi fighting. Even the veteran mercenaries couldn't couldn't hide their amazement. The way the three Magi combined their spells so seamlessly was breathtaking. Adam watched the lightning spread across the battlefield. Although he had once witnessed the far greater power of the black-armored Magus from his vision, he still couldn't look away. The desire to become a Magus grew stronger inside him. One day, he wanted to wield such power himself. Then, without warning, Adam felt his soul tremble. Meanwhile, the Alpha Wolf was consumed by rage after seeing so many members of its pack slaughtered. Throwing its head back, it released a furious howl before gathering a sphere of darkness inside its mouth. The energy ball rapidly expanded before launching toward the three Magi. Ivan immediately stepped forward. Using mold earth, he raised two massive earthen walls directly in front of the attack. The sphere of darkness smashed into the walls, creating a deafening explosion that sent dust and debris flying everywhere. By the end of the collision, both the attack and the walls had been completely destroyed. Before the dust could settle, Alex and Kelly rushed forward. The Alpha Wolf attempted to gather another dark sphere, but the two Magi were already upon it. Working together once more, they simultaneously cast Thornvine and Acidic Splash. A thick green vine materialized and lashed toward the wolf. At the same time, Alex coated the vine with corrosive purple acid. The acidic vine wrapped tightly around the Alpha Wolf, restricting its movement while burning through its fur and poisoning its flesh. The spell, gathering inside its mouth, instantly collapsed. For the first time, panic appeared in the beast's eyes. Then the ground behind it suddenly exploded. Ivan burst out from beneath the earth, wielding a massive black warhammer infused with mana. Without hesitation, he brought the weapon crashing down on the wolf's head. The impact was catastrophic. The Alpha Wolf's skull exploded instantly, leaving behind nothing but mangled flesh and shattered bone. The moment their leader died, the remaining wolves lost all courage and fled into the darkness. The battle was over. Kelly looked at the ruined corpse and lamented the fact that they could no longer sell it for money. Ivan awkwardly apologized, while Alex reassured him that he had done well. With the threat eliminated, the three Magi returned to camp. The surviving children and mercenaries erupted into cheers, praising the Magi's incredible teamwork and overwhelming strength. Alex and Ivan, however, paid little attention to the admiration. They were already accustomed to such reactions. As they walked back, Alex suddenly noticed someone standing completely motionless amid the celebrations. It was Adam. Unlike everyone else, he seemed completely unaware of what was happening around him. His consciousness had already drifted back into the mysterious space connected to the White Lotus. While everyone celebrated the Magi's victory over the wolf pack, Adam's consciousness drifted elsewhere. He suddenly found himself back inside the mysterious white space connected to the White Lotus. At first, he was startled, but that shock quickly turned into excitement. Ever since obtaining the Lotus, he had tried countless methods to return to this strange place, yet none of them had worked. Now, without warning, he was finally back. Curiously, he looked around at the countless glowing white orbs floating throughout the endless white space. Then he noticed something strange. More and more orbs were appearing. The light slowly materialized around the edges of the space, and before long, nearly 100 new orbs appeared at once. Adam stared in disbelief, unable to understand what was happening. Determined to learn more, he swam toward the nearest orb. After gathering his courage, he reached out and touched it. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then an indescribable feeling washed over him. His mind became calmer than ever before. A profound sense of tranquility filled him, and it felt as though his very soul had been nourished. His thoughts became clearer, and he experienced a level of mental clarity unlike anything he had ever felt. When he finally opened his eyes, he felt completely refreshed. Although he didn't truly understand what a soul was, he instinctively knew that these glowing orbs were strengthening something within him. Looking around at the thousands of floating lights, Adam couldn't help imagining what would happen if he absorbed all of them. Excited by the possibility, he immediately moved toward another orb. But before he could touch it, a hand suddenly grabbed his shoulder. The white space vanished. Adam snapped back to reality and found Alex standing before him. Confused, he looked around and realized the battle was over. The wolves had been defeated and the survivors were tending to the wounded. Alex jokingly asked whether he had somehow fallen asleep while standing. Relieved that the danger had passed, Adam tried to respond. Instead, exhaustion finally caught up to him. The brutal battle, his severe injuries, and the massive blood loss overwhelmed him, and he immediately collapsed unconscious. When Adam woke up again, sunlight was streaming through the window of a moving carriage. Slowly opening his eyes, he discovered that his left arm had been heavily bandaged. The moment he tried moving it, a sharp pain shot through through his body. As he winced, a cheerful voice greeted him. Looking up, Adam saw a brown-haired girl smiling at him. He was surprised. Until now, none of the noble children had ever spoken to him willingly. Another boy in the carriage answered his question about their location, explaining that they were already deeper inside Crest Valley. As the conversation continued, Adam quickly realized why everyone was suddenly acting differently. During the battle, he had fought off numerous wolves and unknowingly protected several children. The others had witnessed his courage and strength firsthand. In a world where power was respected above all else, their attitudes toward him had naturally changed. For the first time, the children treated him with friendliness instead of contempt. Adam accepted their kindness, but his attention soon drifted elsewhere. He gazed out the carriage window and thought about the White Lotus. The experience inside the mysterious space had already begun producing noticeable effects. His perception felt sharper, his thoughts flowed more smoothly, and his mind seemed to operate more efficiently than before. Everything pointed toward his earlier suspicion being correct. The glowing orbs had strengthened him in some way, but more importantly, Adam had gained a new realization. He now had a strong feeling that he finally knew how to enter the mysterious space within the White Lotus whenever he wished. Now that Adam knew how to enter the mysterious space inside the White Lotus at will, he began piecing together the clues surrounding the artifact. As the children excitedly discussed how the three Magi had slaughtered more than 100 wolves with only a few spells, Adam's thoughts drifted elsewhere. The number of new white orbs that had appeared inside the Lotus space was suspiciously similar to the number of wolves killed during the battle. The coincidence was too great to ignore. Remembering the vision he had witnessed after touching the Lotus, Adam recalled how the black-armored Magus had activated the artifact and wiped out thousands of enemy Magi. The Lotus had devoured all of their souls. Slowly, a terrifying realization formed in his mind. The number of glowing orbs inside the mysterious space seemed to match the number of Magi who had died in that vision. Cold sweat covered his back. The White Lotus wasn't merely storing souls, it was absorbing them, and even more frightening, Adam could consume those souls to strengthen his own. The discovery left him both excited and uneasy. Possessing such an artifact could become an incredible advantage on his path to becoming a Magus, but if others learned about it, the consequences could be unimaginable. He immediately decided that the Lotus would remain his greatest secret. Still worried, Adam questioned the children around him about what had happened after he lost consciousness. When they told him that Alex had personally carried him back to the carriage before a mercenary treated his wounds, Adam became nervous. Had Alex somehow discovered the Lotus? After calming down, he concluded that he was probably overthinking. An artifact capable of hiding within a person's body couldn't be exposed that easily. With that concern temporarily set aside, Adam focused on testing his latest theory. Closing his eyes, he entered a calm state and concentrated on the Lotus. Moments later, he successfully returned to the mysterious white space. His guess had been correct. Looking around, he confirmed that the number of floating orbs closely matched the number of souls devoured during the black-armored Magus's final battle. Adam carefully examined the countless lights surrounding him. Some were tiny and emitted a gentle feeling. Others were as large as watermelons and radiated a pressure that made him uneasy. There were even some larger than his own body. Instinctively, he knew he wasn't ready to absorb those larger souls. While observing the orbs, he noticed one that looked different from the others. Unlike the pure white souls around it, this one occasionally flashed with various colors. Curious, Adam approached it. After studying it for a while and sensing no danger, he decided to absorb it. The moment he touched the orb, the familiar sensation of soul strengthening returned. But this time, something else happened. A flood of information exploded into his mind. Back in the real world, Adam's body suddenly began trembling inside the carriage. Sweat poured from his forehead as pain twisted his expression. The children around him panicked, asking what was wrong. For several agonizing minutes, it felt as though countless ants were crawling through his brain. His face turned red, veins bulged at his temples, and he struggled to endure the overwhelming sensation. Eventually, the pain subsided. Adam assured the others that his wound was simply acting up and claimed he needed rest. Then he closed his eyes and focused inward. As he sorted through the torrent of information, he gradually realized what had happened. The colored orb hadn't merely strengthened his soul, it had contained memories. More specifically, fragments of memories belonging to one of the Magi whose soul had been devoured by the White Lotus. The memories clashed with his own for hours as he painstakingly organized them. Thanks to the strengthening of his soul, he eventually succeeded. By the time the sun was beginning to set, Adam finally opened his his eyes. A strange expression appeared on his face as he processed the knowledge he had inherited. Among the fragments he received, one field of expertise stood out clearly: herbalism. Another 2 weeks passed, and the caravan finally approached the borders of the Nightingale Kingdom. The dangerous wilderness gradually gave way to fertile farmlands, and signs of civilization began appearing once more. Villages and small hamlets dotted the landscape, lifting the spirits of the children who had spent over 3 exhausting months on the road. Since the wolf attack, the caravan had not suffered another major incident. While a few groups of magical beasts had appeared, the 3 Magi dealt with them before they could become a threat. The wolf attack itself had claimed the lives of roughly half a dozen children. Although the Magi could have saved them, they chose not to intervene. The journey served as an unofficial test. In the eyes of the Magi, talent alone wasn't enough to become a Magus. Courage, judgment, and the ability to survive under pressure were equally important. Those who survived the wolf attack had proven they possessed at least some of these qualities. As a result, only around 60 children remained in the caravan. During these 2 weeks, Adam's injuries prevented him from practicing swordsmanship. The mercenaries had already run out of healing potions, and he didn't feel comfortable asking the Magi for assistance. Instead, he devoted all of his attention to the White Lotus. Every day, he entered the mysterious space and absorbed small soul fragments. Alongside the strengthening of his own soul, he continued assimilating the memories related to herbalism. The results were remarkable. Not only did he gain knowledge, but he also inherited practical experience. The information felt natural, as if he had personally spent years studying herbs and brewing potions. The more Adam learned, the more excited he became. Herbalists and potion masters were highly valued in the Magus world, and many of them were wealthy. If he could make use of this knowledge, he might finally solve his future financial problems. With every absorbed soul fragment, his perception improved. His thoughts became faster and clearer, and his mind operated more smoothly than ever before. One evening, as the caravan stopped beside a lake to make camp, Adam stepped outside and breathed in the fresh air. The children had changed significantly over the course of the journey. Tasks such as setting up tents and preparing campfires would once have been beneath noble children, but months of hardship had forced them to mature. As Adam looked around, his gaze landed on Jeffrey. The moment their eyes met, Adam's expression turned cold. Jeffrey immediately looked away and distanced himself. Ever since the wolf attack, he had avoided Adam completely. Watching him leave, Adam silently vowed that he would settle that debt someday. Soon afterward, Adam noticed the 3 Magi sitting by the lakeside. Ivan and Kelly were reading books, while Alex sat alone, casually skipping pebbles across the water. Seeing an opportunity he hadn't had before, Adam approached him. Alex immediately recognized him. Adam respectfully thanked him for helping after the wolf attack. Alex casually dismissed the gratitude, explaining that he had merely thrown Adam into a carriage rather than truly taking care of him. Even so, the conversation reassured Adam somewhat. Alex didn't seem to know anything about the White Lotus, though Adam still decided to remain cautious. Then Alex unexpectedly asked where Adam had learned swordsmanship. Feeling proud, Adam began explaining that he had mostly taught himself. Before he could finish, Alex bluntly concluded that this explained why his swordsmanship was so crude and barbaric. Adam's face immediately stiffened, but he could only awkwardly promise to improve. After recovering from the embarrassment, he seized the opportunity to ask something that had been on his mind for a long time. Taking a deep breath, Adam looked at Alex and asked about the entrance examination for Clover Academy. Alex patiently explained that Clover Academy's entrance examination consisted of 3 separate tests. The first was a comprehensive aptitude test. The second focused on analytical ability, and the third was a combat test. Adam was surprised to learn that combat was part of the evaluation process. Alex also revealed that students who performed exceptionally well during the examination would receive rewards from the academy. Hearing that, Adam became even more eager to prove himself. After thanking Alex for sharing the information, he prepared to leave. However, Alex stopped him with one final piece of advice. Killing was strictly forbidden inside Moon City and on Clover Academy's grounds. Anyone who violated that rule would face severe punishment. Then, Alex casually added that settling scores outside the city was a different matter entirely. Adam immediately understood the meaning behind those words. Alex was clearly aware of the conflict between him and Jeffrey. Thanking the Magus once more, Adam returned to the campsite. As he passed Jeffrey, the two exchanged cold looks, but neither made a move. Ever since Alex's warning, Jeffrey had stayed away from Adam. Both boys wanted revenge, but neither could act for now. Their feud would have to wait. Soon, another week passed. At last, after more than 3 months of travel, the caravan reached its destination. In the distance, the silhouette of Moon City appeared. The moment the children saw it, excitement exploded throughout the caravan. Everyone leaned out of the carriage windows and stared in awe. Even from afar, the city looked enormous. Massive buildings rose above the skyline, while countless giant trees could be seen throughout the city. Known as the Jewel of the South, Moon City was the most famous city in the southern region of the continent. Adam couldn't stop smiling as he stared at it. Even the South Ward alone looked many times larger than his entire hometown. As the caravan drew closer, the city's defenses became visible. 3 layers of towering walls surrounded Moon City. Each wall was taller than the one before it, and silver-armored knights patrolled the battlements above. When the caravan arrived at one of the main gates of the South Ward, the guards immediately stopped them. The leader of the Crescent Mercenary Company presented the necessary documents and explained that they were escorting children who would be taking Clover Academy's entrance examination. Although the guards recognized the mercenary company, they still inspected every carriage according to protocol. Ivan impatiently complained about the delay, but after recognizing the Clover Academy insignia on his clothes, the guards respectfully apologized and continued their inspection. Eventually, the caravan received permission to enter. Since Adam's carriage was near the back of the convoy, he entered later than most of the others. As his carriage passed through the massive, 18-foot-tall adamantine gate, he could only stare in amazement. The moment they entered the city, a completely different world unfolded before him. The streets were crowded with people from many races. Besides humans, Adam saw elves, dwarves, and gnomes for the very first time in his life. Everything around him felt vibrant and alive. The caravan traveled along South Lunar Avenue, one of the city's major roads. Cobblestone streets stretched in every direction, lined with bustling shops and crowded market stalls. One thing stood out to Adam more than anything else. Trees were everywhere. Some were taller than buildings, some buildings were taller than trees, and in certain cases, the trees themselves were the buildings. Adam even spotted bridges made from enormous branches and towering trees filled with windows where people lived. The abundance of vegetation gave the city a refreshing atmosphere, unlike anything he had experienced before. Combined with the thriving trade and countless merchants, it was obvious why Moon City had become the greatest mercantile city in the Southern Federation. After traveling through the city for about 20 minutes, the caravan finally came to a stop. Standing before them was a magnificent marble archway. At its center was a symbol Adam instantly recognized, a 4-leaf clover. Seeing it, excitement surged through him. After months of hardship, danger, and endless travel, they had finally arrived. They were at Clover Academy. The moment the caravan arrived at Clover Academy, the children eagerly grabbed their belongings and rushed toward the entrance. But before anyone could enter, Alex, Ivan, and Kelly stepped in front of them. Alex congratulated the group for enduring 3 difficult months of travel, surviving dangerous situations, and finally reaching Moon City. The children erupted into cheers. For many of them, the journey had been the hardest experience of their lives. Some were so overwhelmed with relief that they nearly cried. Then Alex immediately shattered their excitement. Despite reaching the academy, none of them were students yet. The entrance examination was still 7 days away, and until they passed it, they were forbidden from entering the academy grounds. The children instantly exploded into protests. Some demanded explanations, others complained about the unfairness of the situation, and a few even started crying. Ivan silenced everyone with a single shout. Alex then informed them that they would be staying at Sherman's Inn for the next week. Since the inn belonged to Clover Academy, prospective students would receive a discount. Unfortunately for the children, a discount still meant they had to pay. The complaints only grew louder. Many of the noble children were horrified that they would have to spend their own money. Among those suffering the most were Jeffrey and the other children Adam had beaten and robbed during the journey. Their money pouches were now sitting comfortably on Adam's belt. Realizing their predicament, Adam couldn't resist mocking them. He deliberately showed off his bulging pouch and grinned at them. Jeffrey and his companions nearly exploded with rage. After enjoying their frustration, Adam turned his attention back to Alex. The Magus gave one final piece of advice. Moon City was safe, but the children should avoid wandering the streets after sunset. Most importantly, they were required to return to the academy entrance 7 days later at sunrise for the examination. With that, the 3 Magi departed to report the completion of their mission. The mercenaries also said their farewells and went their separate ways. Soon, the children split into groups and began exploring Moon City. Meanwhile, Jeffrey's group quickly descended into panic. Without money, they had no way to pay for lodging or the academy entrance fee. The others immediately blamed Jeffrey for their situation. After arguing for a while, Jeffrey suggested taking their jewelry and valuables to the Mercantile Guild to pawn them for money. The group reluctantly agreed. As they left, Jeffrey's hatred for Adam deepened even further. Unable to find him in the crowd, he silently swore revenge. While Jeffrey dealt with his problems, Adam began exploring the South Ward. The scale of Clover Academy amazed him. The campus occupied most of the district, while the remaining area was filled with markets, inns, taverns, and businesses that served students. Eventually, Adam reached the bustling market district beside the river Ore. The harbor was crowded with ships, sailors, merchants, and travelers from many races. Everywhere he looked, people were buying, selling, bargaining, laughing, and entertaining one another. Compared to his hometown, the scene felt almost unreal. Adam wandered through the streets in awe while carefully protecting his money pouch. The deeper he ventured into the market, the more fascinated he became. There were exotic goods, dwarven-crafted weapons, fresh produce, roadside stalls, and elegant shops. After spending a long time exploring, he finally found the place he had been searching for, a store decorated with flowers and unusual plants. Above the entrance hung a wooden sign, "Herbs and More." Ever since the wolf attack, Adam's injured arm had continued bothering him. Now that he possessed extensive herbal knowledge from the memories he had absorbed, he wanted to see if he could find something to help treat it. Gently rubbing the bandages wrapped around his arm, Adam pushed open the door and stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, his eyes widened. Without warning, a massive two-headed vulture let out a piercing screech and lunged straight at him. Its enormous maw closed in rapidly, and for a brief moment, Adam froze. Countless thoughts raced through his mind. Why was a magical beast attacking him inside Moon City? Wasn't killing forbidden within the city? Was he really about to die the moment he arrived? Then, deep within his soul, the White Lotus suddenly stirred. The artifact slowly rotated and released a calming aura that instantly cleared his mind. As his panic vanished, Adam noticed something strange. The terrifying vulture had become translucent. Realization struck him immediately. The creature wasn't real. A moment later, the vulture passed harmlessly through his body and disappeared into thin air. Before Adam could process what had happened, a surprised voice echoed through the shop. Someone remarked that it was impressive for him to see through the illusion. Adam hurriedly looked around, but couldn't find anyone. Then the voice told him to look down. Standing before him was an elderly gnome with a bald head, pointed ears, and a thick white beard. The old gnome was smoking from a pipe while carefully observing him. Excited, Adam initially mistook him for a dwarf. Unfortunately, the gnome responded by smacking him on the head with his pipe and angrily correcting him. He was a gnome, not a dwarf. After apologizing, Adam listened as the old gnome questioned how he had seen through the illusion. According to him, ordinary people without mana shouldn't have been able to recognize it. Adam immediately realized the White Lotus was responsible. However, there was no way he could reveal that secret. Instead, he innocently claimed that he had simply felt the vulture was fake. The gnome stared into his eyes for several moments before eventually letting the matter drop. When Adam asked why the illusion had been cast in the first place, the old man simply replied that life needed a little excitement. Ignoring the gnome's strange sense of humor, Adam began exploring the shop. The interior was far larger than it appeared from the outside. Shelves filled with herbs, flowers, spices, books, potions, ointments, and oils covered the walls. Thanks to the herbalism memories he had absorbed from the White Lotus, Adam recognized many of the items immediately. Eventually, his attention landed on a healing potion. Without thinking, he picked up the vial and examined it. The moment he uncorked it, the knowledge inside his mind automatically began analyzing its ingredients. He calmly listed several components used in the potion and even pointed out an unfamiliar earthen powder that appeared to be part of an experimental modification. The gnome froze. He stared at Adam, then at the potion, and then back at Adam again. This made no sense. Adam clearly wasn't a magus, yet his knowledge of herbalism rivaled that of trained professionals. When questioned, Adam quickly claimed that he only possessed a bit of theoretical knowledge and wasn't a real herbalist. After a long silence, the gnome finally confirmed that Adam's analysis was largely correct. The mysterious powder had indeed come from one of his personal experiments using the shell of a lake worm. Satisfied, Adam politely requested to buy the healing potion. The answer nearly made him choke. choke. The potion cost 5 platinum coins, or 50 gold coins. The price was far beyond what Adam expected. Seeing his reaction, the old gnome grinned mischievously. Then he offered an alternative. Instead of paying, Adam could receive the potion for free. Adam immediately became suspicious. After everything that had happened since entering the shop, he knew there was definitely a catch. Carefully eyeing the old gnome, he asked what the man wanted in return. That's all for this video. We'll be back again with another one soon, so drop a like and do subscribe if you enjoyed it and want more of the same.